discussion.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so my job here is fairly short because now I'm going to introduce our moderator for tonight, Claire Samuels, who is a professor of I'm not gonna get this right. And say it.
Anthropology, yes.
Thank you. At Bucknell. So Claire, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Candy, for inviting me here this evening, and good evening to all of you. My name is Claire Samuels, and I will be your moderator this evening. The League sponsors nonpartisan candidates nights for voters to learn more about candidates running in contested elections. This event is an opportunity for citizens to become educated about the candidates and their positions. One of our goals for this evening is to create an atmosphere that is a comfortable forum for the candidates to answer questions. We ask that the candidates focus on the issues and ideas that distinguish them from other candidates on the panel and offer civil and non-inflammatory responses to questions. All audience members will be video and audio muted for this event, and the chat will be closed. Tonight's event will be recorded from start to finish. Within the next few days, the complete and unedited recording of this event will be published on YouTube. Links to this recording will also be available on our League's Facebook page for the League of Women Voters, Lewisburg area, and on our website, lwvlewisburgarea.org. This evening, the panelists will be asked questions that were received from people who registered to attend this event, as well as questions prepared in advance by our League's Voter Services Committee. League questions were developed from a variety of sources, including suggestions from League members and research into the online information available about school board issues. Questions were screened using the following criteria: that they are relevant to current issues and to the office being considered, that they are carefully phrased to prevent bias and partisanship, that they are questions relevant to all candidates for the office in question, that they are comprehensive, that they are not inflammatory or a gratuitous attack on any candidate, and that they do not duplicate questions that have already been asked. Our panel tonight will consist of candidates for school director from both the Lewisburg Area School District and the Mifflinburg Area School District Region 2. As we begin, we wish to remind our audience that school directors are members of a board that sets policy, determines the annual budget, and levies taxes accordingly, evaluates the superintendent, and monitors student achievement. The board focuses on governance, while the superintendent is responsible for the daily operation of the district. Boards meet at least monthly, in addition to committee meetings and executive sessions. School directors are not paid, and the term is for 4 years. In advance of this event, we invited all candidates for these positions to submit written responses to the following 2 questions. 1, how will you approach decisions on controversial issues when community members have conflicting views about the actions the school board should take? And 2, school board members have collective authority rather than individual. How will you foster a spirit of collaboration with your fellow board members to successfully work together on behalf of the students? The answers that candidates gave to these questions are publicly available at vote411.org and in our League's voter guides, which are available online and in print at post offices, banks, libraries, and other public locations. There will be 8 candidates on the ballot for the Lewisburg Area School District positions to fill 5 positions on the board. 4 of those candidates are here tonight. They are Justin Madaus, Ashley Ann Grant, Ross Muir, and Cory Heath. There will be 5 candidates on the ballot for the Mifflinburg Region 2 to fill 2 positions on the board. 3 of them are here tonight. They are Autumn Faust, Dennis Keiser, and Francis Gillot. Will the candidates now please turn on their video cameras and unmute themselves? Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 1 minute for a closing statement, and 1 minute to answer each question, with 30 seconds for a rebuttal response if they wish. Our timer tonight is Linda Harris. When there are 30 seconds left to finish an answer to a question, she will hold up a yellow card. When time is up, she will hold up a red card. At that time, candidates should finish their sentence and then stop. When presenting a rebuttal, candidates will have 30 seconds to speak. A yellow card will indicate 15 seconds are left. When the red card is held up, candidates should finish their sentence and stop. We ask that all the candidates honor these time constraints so that all may be heard. We will begin with the candidates' opening statements. I remind you that you have 2 minutes each. We'll begin with Justin Madaus.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring and hosting this event, as well as my fellow candidates for attending, and for the community for coming out, asking questions, and listening. Obviously, my name's Justin Madaus, and I'm running for a seat on the Lewisburg School Board. I'm a licensed psychologist, a counselor at the Commonwealth University on the Lock Haven campus, a business owner, a property owner, and a parent. I'm also a former school board member in the Whitehall-Copley School District in Lehigh County, which is just outside of Allentown. There, I served as president, vice president, and board representative to the Lehigh Career and Technical Institute, which I believe is akin to SunTech here in Union County. As a father and a product of public education, I believe providing the opportunity for every child in our community to get a quality foundational education is really one of the most important functions of government at all levels. The Lewisburg School District has a good reputation for doing that, and that's one of the reasons that my wife and I decided to move here and live here. I think as a board member, I would strive to continue being a fiscally responsible steward of taxpayer dollars while maintaining the quality of education that Lewisburg has built their reputation on. I would also be an advocate for a more fair state funding formula, while also looking for ways to kind of be more efficient and creative in seeking out alternative revenue sources. As a psychologist, I'm all too familiar with the mental health crisis that we've watched unfold across the lifespan, and would be an advocate and a source of information to ensure we're doing everything we can to take care of the mental health and well-being of our students and staff. Finally, I will continue to be, as I was previously, an outspoken advocate for career and technical education. I think we need to work harder and make bigger investments to reduce the stigma, increase interest and enrollment in technical education. I saw firsthand the success of students graduating from LCTI into good, high-paying jobs right out of high school, becoming integral and productive members of our community. And I think we need to do better here at promoting and getting kids involved in career and technical education. So with that, I'll say I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. We will now welcome Ashley Grant to give her opening statement.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's lovely to be here, and thanks also to League of Women Voters for hosting. My name is Ashley Grant, and I'm excited to be running for the position of Lewisburg School Board Director. As someone who's dedicated my whole career to education, I'm really passionate about supporting great schools in our town and making sure that our students in Lewisburg continue to have access to an excellent education. I believe my experience in varied roles across education will help me to be an excellent school board member. First, I worked as a classroom teacher and saw what it was like on the ground level, and it really gives me a lot of empathy for our teachers and staff working in schools. I also served on a Catholic school board while I lived in Baltimore, and I really saw what it was like. As Justin mentioned, right, a lot of the kind of just balancing budgets and kind of the boring things, but the things that really need to get done. And also helped to lead strategic planning there. And now I'm in education research, where I figure out what programs actually work to help students learn. And particularly in my work now as an education researcher, I really enjoy working with school districts across the country, like Lewisburg and some different ones, where I work to bring members of the community together and to fuel great education outcomes for our students. As an expectant parent of a future Lewisburg student, I'm excited to bring my skills and experience in community building, strategic planning, and education improvements to Lewisburg School District. And I look forward to hearing everybody's questions tonight and providing our community with a greater understanding of my priorities and perspectives as a potential school board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Next, we'll hear the opening statement of Ross Muir.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I apologize. I'm a little differently dressed. This is not a Halloween costume. I'm at work. So, but obviously just want to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. And a little bit about myself. My wife and I moved to Lewisburg in 2010, or at least I did. And then we got married in 2011, and she stopped her job as a special education teacher in Lancaster in the Cocalico School District, and then moved up to Lewisburg, where she was a substitute teacher in our area. And then we were blessed to have our first of 3 daughters, and we were able to have her be a stay-at-home mom. So my wife and I have lived here for about 13 years now, and have just had a wonderful experience so far in the community. So why am I running? Great question. Because I have 3 daughters in the school district, and I'm really excited about a way that I could contribute. Obviously, it's not for the pay, it's not for the time commitment. So in terms of running for school board, I think it's a great way to serve. It's just an awesome opportunity to serve our community and get involved, and maybe a way that might dovetail into some of my expertise. I am a medical device sales rep, so I work in the operating room, but I also run a business. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a negotiating, a little bit of a business background, and those are certainly things that I think as a school district, and as as you're looking at your tax base, I think that that's something that's really important to make sure that we're walking that fine line between, sourcing the proper amount of funding and then using it properly. So with that, I will definitely give back the rest of my time, but I want to thank you all, and I want to encourage you, certainly feel free to reach out if you have any questions and you're not able to get all your questions answered throughout the Zoom call. I'm sure I speak for all the candidates, but we'd be happy to answer those at any point in time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Next, we will hear the opening statement of Cory Heath.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight and hosting the event. My name is Cory Heath. I am lived here in Lewisburg for about 24 years, I think. I retired out of the federal prison system, last 10 years of which I was an investigator in the system. I've been on the Lewisburg School Board for the last 8 years, and I've been serving as the vice president of the board for the last 4 years. So I bring that experience with me. It's been a good experience. I enjoy the ability the opportunity to serve, and I'm willing to continue to do so if enough voters allow me to.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Next, we'll hear the opening statement of Autumn Faust.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you again for hosting this event tonight. It's lovely to be with everyone. So my name is Autumn Faust. I am running for school director in the Mifflinburg 2 region. I am a proud Mifflinburg graduate myself, as is my husband. So born and raised in Mifflinburg, and we're raising our 2 daughters here now. So I really wanted to get involved. I've seen so many parents with kids actively in school right now involved in school board, and I really feel like that's important to kind of take ownership when your kids are there. I come in with a background of my grandparents and my father being school teachers, and then my father's actually a retired administrator from the district. So I kind of grew up being a little bit behind the scenes of a lot of the administration stuff that was going on. And so I have some insight into things that way. And I am myself a registered nurse by profession, but many of my very close friends from my time at Mifflinburg are teachers, and I have the utmost respect for the job that they do every day. I truly feel like they're unsung heroes, and I really want to be here to help support that. If elected, I really want to foster a safe school environment that encourages all students to be good citizens, lifelong learners, and reach their maximum potential. I really want to foster a culture of collaboration, transparency between administration, educators, school board, staff, parents, students, and community members, so that it's kind of a whole collaborative community effort, because I really do feel like we have a very nice, tight-knit community in Mifflinburg. And yeah, I'm just really proud to be a Mifflinburg resident, and really hoping to get on board and help out in any way I can. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Next, we'll hear the opening statement from Dennis Keiser.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this event. I've been married for 45 years, and I've been a resident of Mifflinburg for 34 years, and school board member for the past 11 years, and a member of the CSIU board for the past 11 years. And the Mifflinburg board, I served both as a vice president and the president, and I'm currently the president on the CSIU board. The reason that I'm running is because both of my sons, I have twin sons, were graduates of Mifflinburg back in 2010, and one was college bound and the other one had learning supports. What we found as parents is that the Mifflinburg School District gave them a wonderful education to prepare them for the world. And both of them have thrived and done very well for themselves. I want to see that continue. I don't have an agenda. I like to listen to both sides of the story and decide what is best for the community. I'm not partial to one side or another. And I think that that's what's kept me fair-minded, and I really enjoy being on the board. And we've gone through a lot of serious issues. Of course, one of our problems is a rural school district with financial issues, which we really need to address. But otherwise, I think that we have a great program. We have excellent administrators. I am not an administrator. I don't like it when school board members try to run the district. They are not in that qualification. I believe that we try to do the best we can and choose the best people to serve our students and keep them safe and well educated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. And now we hear the opening statement from Francis Gillot.
Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this. My wife and I have been, well, my wife was a teacher at Mifflinburg, retired, and I was self-employed, not in Mifflinburg, but in Lock Haven, and retired, and with a business background, and also with being married to a teacher. We also have two sons that graduated from Mifflinburg. And I thought, well, this is a good time to give back to the community, especially and so the best way that I found was get involved on the school board. I've been on the school board for a number of years. I got off for after 20 years. Then there was an opening, and I thought, with what's happening in the world today, I thought, well, I should get back on, because we do have a good school in Mifflinburg. We have fine teachers, but we do have issues throughout the country. We do have financial issues. And I feel with my experience and background and time that I can devote for the school district, that I can be very helpful. I do not want to micromanage, but I like to work together with my other school board members, find a solution to any problems we might have. But we do have majority rules, and whatever happens, I respect the majority and work. Okay, I see my time's done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. We'll now move on to the first question, which is this. What do you view as the top needs of the district, and how would you prioritize those needs in your district's budget? For this question, we'll begin with Mr. Muir.
I think some of the top needs from the school district, from the Lewisburg side is funding. Obviously, it's not without note that funding is going to be a sensitive and a very sore subject for a lot of people. And losing for example, a big business like the Country Cupboard, that's $78,000 of a tax base that we've now lost. So I think we need to work on sourcing funding for the school district, and then with that funding, then we can address some of the other pending issues. As far as what else the school district's facing, I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. I'm sure all the other school board members in prior years wish that they had a school or a crystal ball to predict COVID and how they might be able to help in that situation. But I would just say that similar to Francis's point, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I'd like to hear from every board member, and then we will make that decision by listening to our teachers and our administrators in the school district. They're actually doing the work on the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. We'll now pass the same question to Mr. Heath.
I think Ross pretty well hit the nail on the head. Just about everything when it comes to school boards has to do with the budget. There's a really long list of priorities and things that everybody would like to do, and there's a finite amount of resources to do those things with. So it becomes about juggling priorities and choosing which one of those things we're going to do. I think in Lewisburg, the boards have always taken the view that what was best for the kids was the way we were going to go, and different people define what's best for them in different ways. But I think in general, everybody knows where the priorities lie. Obviously, a strong education and a well-rounded background are what we're shooting for. So we try to align the resources with those priorities and do the best that we can.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Now the same question for Ms. Faust. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I want to echo a lot of what was already said. I definitely think budget is one of the most important things, right? We're stewards of that, those taxpayer resources in our area, and we have to think about how to most wisely use them to provide the best possible education for our kids. And certainly, I think it was Justin that spoke to this in his opening statement, but I'm certainly hopeful that there's some changes going to be happening with allocation of state funding coming down the pike with some of the new court rulings that happened in February. But I really think that would be beneficial to us in a rural area. And certainly also echoing what was said, I think that, we need to be mindful of talking to not only parents in the area, but also teachers and also students, and getting some of their insight on things that are important to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Keiser.
Okay, thank you. I think the funding is one of the top priorities for us, especially, like I said, from being from a rural community and finding, new sources of money. We really don't have a lot of industry in our area. I'd really like to see Muir County commissioners try to pull more of that in. I think that another priority is we have to keep our salaries competitive. We often lose out really good educators to other districts because we don't have the resources or the money to hire them. The same way with things like school psychologists. I also think it's important we have better communications among all parties involved, the administration, the teachers, and the board. We do have to keep our eye on spending. There's talk right now about, building a new stadium for our district, and that's not something that's going to come lightly. Other districts have really bit off more than they can chew. So I want to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball on such things as spending money like that, especially when it's in millions of dollars. But finding the funding, that's the biggest thing, and trying to figure out where we can get those resources or how we can cut back on certain things.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Gillot.
Thank you. There again, communication is the biggest thing. With working with the superintendent, the financial manager, and like Dennis says, we're a farming community. We don't have major industry, but Mifflinburg is a very conservative area, and we've done pretty well all these years, but we can do better. And we have to watch our pennies. We love to give our children everything, our students, but we do give them a good education. I think that's the most important thing, and we just have to watch our pocketbook. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. We'll now turn to Mr. Madaus.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would echo what other members have said about funding. I think one of the things that I learned in my previous service was that board members need to get active when it comes to reaching out to other local officials. So, the township officials, the county officials, the state officials, and really advocating for the needs of the school district in areas of funding, but also how can we partner with other levels of government to ensure that we're doing the things we need to do for our kids. And that was somewhat successful in our case. We were able to do some creative things to increase some revenue for the district, and so I would bring that experience were I to be elected.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. Now the same question for Ms. Grant.
Great. Yeah, I was going to bring up again the budget. I think, trying to provide a quality education while also sustaining a tight budget is always hard. Definitely in my prior experience on a Catholic school board where you're relying on student tuition and we were in a low income area, that was a huge issue. And we had a crazy tight budget, and something that always came up for us, which Dennis mentioned, was supporting faculty and staff salaries, right? That's a huge part of your budget. And how do you do that and retain those faculty and staff can be a really big challenge, and sometimes making hard choices regarding that. But I also appreciate the other points about getting creative about where you get that funding source, and whether it's, the Green Dragon fundraising efforts, and other creative sources. I think that's a big part of what needs to go into that process as well.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Before we move on to the next question, would any of the candidates like to offer a rebuttal? If you would, please use the raise hand function. Not seeing any hands, we will move on to the next question. This question is, what school district policies would you support or propose to mitigate economic inequalities among students? For this question, we'll begin with Mr. Heath.
Well, as a general rule, I don't propose policies, but we have a committee for that, and it's supported by the entire board. Honestly, I have no idea. I don't have a good response for that. I don't think. I think we make excellent efforts to support all of our students, no matter their backgrounds or their challenges, meet them where they are, and provide an individualized educational experience for each one of them. And I think that's an overarching goal that the district and the board has been pursuing for a number of years. I think in a way, all of our policies are geared towards that. It's part of our mission statements. It's part of our strategic plan. It's really integral into everything that we do. So sitting here, I don't have one policy suggestion to make that would help bring about that, because I think it's a multifaceted approach that has to be integrated into everything you could do to have any chance of being successful.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. The same question from Ms. Faust.
Muted again, sorry. I feel like with any like major issue like that, right, we want to have all of the students' best interest at heart. So like where can we find a place that has the best interest of everyone? But I think to kind of gain that insight, it may be beneficial, and something that I know that Dr. Dady did when he first came into the district that I would really like to see more of, is having some, roundtable type discussions with some members in the community, teachers, students themselves, to see like what everyone else's insight would be onto where certain students that may be at a different like advantage or disadvantage feel that could be like an even playing field for everyone. So I think that just gaining insight from everyone and kind of hearing all perspectives would help me kind of I guess think about what would be best for all.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Keiser.
Yes, I think Mifflinburg does a very good job of meeting all the students, financially in different programs, especially things like learning supports. We have really gone out of our way to make sure that those programs are well funded. The biggest problem again would be, making salaries, equal or better for like aides and things like that. The other thing would be that basically, it is hard to, budget what we're going to do. And some people feel we need to spend more money on sports, or we need to spend more money on, the arts or whatever. I think we have to take a strong look at each one of those programs and decide what is going to best suit as many children as possible. We can't meet the needs of everyone, but I think we do a very good job. But again, it's, funding it. And I don't think we need to have a policy that directs and says we're going to spend this much money on this or this much money on that. I think we just have to, hope that our business managers has their eye on the ball and our superintendents the same way, and that they can present those kind of issues to us to make sure we are meeting the needs of our kids.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Next, Mr. Gillot.
I think communication is number one. We need to back up teachers, because a lot of the students, when they come to school, they want to look up to somebody, and those are the first ones they look at. And if they need help, they want to be able to communicate with the teachers first. Then after that, we have an excellent administration, then it goes to there. And we do have excellent people that can help these, but parents need also to get involved to, instead of condemning each other, back the teachers and help the school. If they have an issue, give it to us. Let us know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Madaus.
Yeah, I think I would echo Mr. Heath in saying that I think Lewisburg already, does a pretty good job of trying to even the playing field for everybody. The breakfast across the board, I think, is really helpful to ensure that kids are able to eat, in the morning and have something in their bellies to learn. And, I think I don't know everything about the district in that regard, but I think also, as I've mentioned before, partnering with community resources to really ensure that lower income families and kids have the things that they need to be able to come to school and focus on learning, whether that's housing or food or, just resources to be able to do that. So I think as a board, getting involved in the community and making sure that we're connected to community is important in that idea.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. Ms. Grant?
Yeah, mitigating economic inequalities. That's something I actually do a lot of in my research as we work with districts. And this is something you look in the data in so many districts across the country. You see this average, like this is our average test score. And it's like, oh, it's really this wide range. And there's a lot of students who are kind of bringing that average down, who are often it's due to economic inequality. And so I think for me, a big thing is kind of looking at the research, and I'm sure somebody in the district has it, but kind of looking like how big of a problem really is this for Lewisburg? And then what we know of what works is actually supporting high quality curriculum, right? Making sure that all students have access to really great materials and instruction. And I think Lewisburg really is doing that with maintaining a high quality faculty and staff. And Justin was getting to that point too about these wraparound supports. So thinking about low-income students, they need more than just a high-quality teacher. They also might need counseling or lunch or after-school programs.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Mr. Muir?
I would say from my experience with a third grader, a first grader, and a soon-to-be kindergartner, it could be speaking to my naivety, but I do think Lewisburg does a really great job. And if I had to take maybe a step back from this, a detached view, what I would say is that I truly believe that our community is on a large scale mutually aligned behind supporting our children. And I think that taking an individualized approach and having that communication with what each child may or may not need. But I definitely think that in terms of any specific policies, there's nothing that I would support or go against right now, mostly because I think that Lewisburg, really tries to wrap their arms around each individual child and give them the best opportunity possible. So I would just say if we could make sure that we have open ears, because I think that's been lost a little bit in modern times. But if we have open ears and open hearts to what the children need, then I think that we're going to be in a really great place.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Before we move on to the next question, would anyone like the opportunity to give a rebuttal? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next question. As a school director, how would you ensure that students of various religious backgrounds, gender identities, disabilities, or cultural heritages will be treated equitably? For this question, we'll start with Ms. Faust.
Yeah, I think that's so important, that because if the kid doesn't come to school feeling welcome and feeling like they belong, like it's really hard in the hierarchy of needs for them to want to learn. So I feel like we need to listen to the kids and listen to what they need. I actually had served previously on the elementary schools equity team in the district. Now, unfortunately, the equity team is no longer at Mifflinburg, but that was something that was really near and dear to my heart, because I really feel like without being controversial one way or another, we can support all the kids feeling welcome and see the beauty in every single child, and what depth and beauty it is, to have just that cornucopia of different cultures, religions, identities, everything like that. So I think that, as a district, we need to really make sure that we are welcoming and supporting all students so they can feel like they have a safe and effective environment in which to learn.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Mr. Keiser?
That's really kind of tough, because a lot of people would want to bring religion into the schools, and we try to make sure that it does stay outside. I think it's something that's taught at home. And I think everyone needs to respect each individual's religions. We're changing. We are not just a Christian community anymore. We're expanding into so many different faiths, and it really makes a big difference. So I think, if there's one way we could educate students, in a history class as to the founding of different religions, but not promote them. But I think it's important that parents really try to express, look, we're all equal. And we're all the same. It's just a different format. We're all going with a different basis. And I think that's really important. And I think if anybody, we've traveled extensively throughout the world, and everywhere you go, people are the same. They love their kids, you know, and their wives maybe nag them or whatever, but I think it's really important that that begins at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Next, Mr. Gillot.
Well, I think with everything we talked about falls into some type of a bullying. And ever since I could remember, since I was in elementary school, there's always students want to pick on somebody else. That's the way life has always been. Is it right? Absolutely not. That is where teachers come involved. I know my wife has told me that she had to step in and talk to some of these students. That's not right. You shouldn't do that. But then I talked to other teachers that they feel like they didn't have any back in them. They would love to step in, but they were afraid of parents and afraid of some school board members. That's why we need good quality teachers and school board directors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. Mr. Madaus.
Yeah, I think it starts, at the school board level with just fostering the sense of inclusivity throughout the district. So, ensuring that the staff that we're hiring has that mindset when they're coming in, ensuring that our policies are reflective of what it means to be inclusive of everyone. And I really think that it starts with the board and works its way down the sense of inclusivity and making sure that everyone feels seen and heard, regardless of the point of view that they're coming from or where they're coming from or their background. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. Ms. Grant.
Yeah, I'd echo especially what Autumn and Justin mentioned about for students to learn. It's so necessary for them to feel welcome and accepted. If they're focused on, the person next to them who's upset at them or the teacher who's upset at them for their identity, they're not going to be learning. We just know that. I think for me, part of that can come to listening to students, which is something that Ross mentioned in our last question, really asking students like, hey, what do you need to feel welcome? Like, are there areas where you don't feel welcome? And then creating those spaces in an environment where they do feel welcome and able to express themselves.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Mr. Muir.
Yeah, I think, what I could maybe add to this answer that everybody's already touched on, but I think it starts with a foundation of culture. So, again, we as a school board, again, if I'm elected, need to have the expectation that the children or the students are going to bring their whole self to school, whatever that may look like, just as our expectations would be that the teachers are going to bring their whole self to school and that everybody's going to give 100% in that effort. In terms of gender identities, religious backgrounds, disabilities, cultural heritage, all those things that you've asked, I might have left something off. But what I would say is that it speaks to a larger thing, which is this is a public school. We're here to teach on the core subjects and here to help these children become the best version of themselves that they can be. And if we can put the resources and the funding behind that, I think the children have a great opportunity after graduation.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Mr. Heath.
To me, when you're addressing issues of equitability for religious background, gender identity, disability, culture, or heritage, this is really a policy question. As school directors, that's really what we do is governance and oversight. We pass policies that address these issues and address the equitability, and then we make efforts to hire administrators and superintendents that embrace those issues and embrace those policies and will apply them. And as school directors, that's about the extent of what we can do. I don't disagree with anything that anybody said, but the fact of the matter is that we don't interact on a one-on-one basis with students all that often. We're really other than encouraging them to come and tell us about some of the things they're doing, which we always enjoy during our meetings. It's just a little outside of the scope of what we do as directors. But passing policies and enforcing those policies is 100% in our lane.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Before we move on to the next question, would anyone like the opportunity to give a rebuttal? Then we'll move on to the next question. School districts across the country are engaging in difficult conversations about banning books, restricting access to internet sites, and limiting teacher autonomy regarding curriculum. What are your guiding principles on how school boards should address questions about what information students can access in school, including what information educators can teach and discuss in their classrooms? For this question, we'll begin with Mr. Keiser.
Okay, thank you. I, for one, am not for banning books. I think that, librarians should be a resource. If there are controversial books, they could always produce, a list to provide to parents and say, these are things that, your child may want to look into. I think there is some controversial material out there, but banning books has always been a tough subject. Believe it or not, 50 years ago, I was a victim of those kind of things. And it's not pleasant, but I think that, our board has done a very good job of monitoring what is being taught. And we've always said that there are alternatives. If there's a title that's not acceptable, that there are alternatives for students. But I think it's really important that we do monitor some of the things that are coming into our schools. And there may be some things that are not acceptable. And but I think there could be a resource list too, or from what teacher or whatever, but not encourage anybody, to go one direction or another. Just make sure that there are resources available. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Mr. Gillot?
Ditto what Mr. Keiser said, but to add to that, there's a lot of garbage coming down through, especially in the elementary and lower levels of education. And we do have, the libraries, and as a school director, I want to make sure that our librarians have the backing to not put these books into the lower grades, because it affects our young students, how do we say, badly. It's in the upper levels, we have to be careful with that too. They say, oh, it's for a college level. Well, if the college demands some of this, then they should go to a different college. I mean, that's how I look at it. When it starts affecting young people, and since COVID and everything that's happening throughout the world, I'm not happy with what's going on. So we need to protect our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. Mr. Madaus?
Yeah, I would echo Dennis. I'm not generally for book banning. I think that's a slippery slope we don't want to go down. I do think that it's important that the material and the curriculum represents what is age and developmentally appropriate. And I think as a board member, that's sort of what the guiding principle would be in developing policy for that for curriculum. And I think that we work really hard to put administrators in place who then hire qualified individuals to make those decisions. And the board certainly continues to have oversight over that. But I'm a believer in if you have qualified individuals doing the job, then the material that's being taught is going to be age and developmentally appropriate for our kids.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. Ms. Grant?
Yeah, I'd echo Justin and saying that banning books has never looked good in history generally when we look back. And also the point about thinking about this when we hire our staff and faculty and leaders. So that we hire qualified people, we should trust them, right? We hire them for a reason. They're qualified. They've spent years studying these things. They know the curriculums and the books much more intimately than we do. But I would add that I think it's important to hear the concerns of the community. When people do have a concern about a certain resource or curriculum, to listen, to hear them out, and then to craft a response that helps keep students safe and learning, but doesn't restrict their learning opportunities either.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Mr. Muir?
Yeah, the question is basically, what are your guiding principles? So it's pretty simple answer for a really big question, which is common sense. And you need to listen. You need to listen to the teachers, your administrators, and also the parents and the taxpayers of the district. And again, taking a couple steps back and realizing that we're all mutually aligned behind providing the best opportunities for the children in the district, and understanding that there are going to be hiccups along the way, but you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you need to listen twice as much as you do talk. So if we can listen to those concerns and truly, lower our ego, listen to the concerns on both sides of whatever subject that may be, I think that we can come up to a positive solution. But these big issues that are going to have to be continually fought and battled have to be done with open ears and open minds.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Mr. Heath?
I don't question that there's districts across the country that are engaging in those conversations. I can tell you without a doubt that in the last 8 years, we've not had any conversations about banning books or limiting educational materials or restricting access to internet sites or limiting teacher autonomy. It's just not something that has occurred locally. Certainly there have been some individual parental concerns that have been raised, often spurred by items that may appear in the national news. I really think the motivations behind a lot of those stories and a lot of that information, quite honestly, has nothing to do with education and has nothing to do with what's in the best interest of students. There are other drivers that are fueling those fires. And I think as long as we keep our eyes focused on what is best for kids and what's best for their education and what's best for the students, that probably we don't have those issues locally.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Ms. Faust?
Yeah, I'd like to echo a lot of the same things that are saying in general. Like Ashley said, book banning usually doesn't look good in history, and so as a general rule, I am not in favor for it. I do feel like with most like network computer systems, there are some like safeguards that are appropriate to have on things like that. But in general, I feel like we do need to listen to the concerns, but also there's we have our educators and our experts in the area in place that hopefully they'd be making those good decisions and those right decisions for what would provide a good education for our kids. And sometimes topics I know that have come up that have been controversial or just because they are hard to hear. And sometimes, unfortunately, so history doesn't repeat itself, we need to hear some hard things sometimes. So.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Would anyone like the opportunity to give a rebuttal before we move on to the next question? Seeing no hands, here is the next question. There are already dramatic teacher shortages, and this situation is predicted to worsen as fewer individuals choose to enter the field and others depart the profession earlier than anticipated. What are the strengths of your district that would attract talented, engaging teachers in the years ahead? For this question, we'll begin with Mr. Gillot.
Well, being married to a teacher, she went into teaching because she wanted to. And at that time, the pay was only $8,000 a year. Well, that has changed considerably. Pay is very important. But I think one of the things is that there's a lot of people, a lot of the community, they look down on teachers. They want everything they want their sons and daughters to be educated, but they don't want to back teachers. They don't want to pay. They think every school is making so much money and doing, and they don't get involved. I think it's very important to back teachers and to make it exciting for young people to get into teaching. I see the stop signs up.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. Mr. Madaus?
Yeah, this is a tough question. I think I'd probably defer to Mr. Heath because he knows more about the district in general. But I think from an outsider's perspective, the fact that the district has, has a good reputation for being a good district. There seems to be a strong, there is a strong parent organization. There's a strong nonprofit organization attached to the school. So I think there are some really good infrastructural things that the district has that are attractive to incoming teachers. Aside from just the culture, I think that Lewisburg has developed as a district that as one that supports their staff and cares about their staff.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. Ms. Grant?
Yeah, teacher shortages are actually one of my big areas of research that I've looked a lot in and I care a lot about, as well as a former teacher myself. I think something that Lewisburg does that's really important, as some of the others mentioned, is competitive pay. It's one of the biggest things. Teachers stay when they're adequately remunerated, right? When they're supported financially in real ways. And it's a big part of retention as well, not just attracting new teachers, but keeping the ones you have is so important. And a big part of that, I think, is having teachers feel supported by the board, right? And things that we decide, but also from their administration. So when we're hiring leaders and when we're talking to our school leaders to make sure that they're prioritizing their teachers' needs and they're bringing them to us as a school board when we're making decisions. And actually getting back to that last question, teacher autonomy is a huge thing. So teachers feel like they're able to select their curriculums, they're able to have a say in how they implement them and care for their students is really important.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Mr. Muir?
Yeah, I think recruiting kind of speaks to me as a former athlete. This makes a lot of sense. I think in terms of education, we need to educate the people that are doing the hiring, which is obviously the board, on our great community. Lewisburg, Union County, Snyder County. We have a wonderful, robust area with parks and a lot of wonderful resources. And then also about the perks of being a teacher. You have the ability to make an impact on young children's lives and set them on a trajectory for success for their whole life. So I think looking at what that looks like and kind of a little bit of education about what Lewisburg is and what our community offers. And also, what does, 30 years from now, what does retirement look like for a teacher, and making sure that we're educating the people that we're interviewing on, it is a wonderful opportunity to provide for your family today and provide for retirement in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Mr. Heath?
Teacher shortage is absolutely a statistical fact across the state. We see that sort of stuff all the time. The board has been very cognizant of that, and fortunately, it's not been something that we've actually experienced in Lewisburg. We've been able to hire our educators. We have good talent pools when we throw the openings out there, and largely that is because the board pays attention to things like compensation, things like benefits, things like creating collegial atmospheres and creating the autonomy to teach the way that teachers want to teach. I think, and then of course you have the testing scores and all of those things too that we've been fortunate to do well in, which helps create that good atmosphere that we're looking for. So I think hopefully with any luck, we continue to pay attention to those key indicators and those areas, and our pool of applicants continues to be good. because that's obviously where we want to be. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Ms. Faust?
Yeah, so definitely teacher shortage is a huge issue. As I said before, many of my close friends are teachers, so I hear about this almost daily from them. Hard time finding subs, all of those things. And I think as Dennis stated before, I think it is hard to definitely stay competitive with pay when you're trying to be fiscally responsible with the district's budget. But I think there's also, while pay is super important to, being able to maintain your family and everything, I think there's definitely, other things that we can be listening to. Like Ashley talked about autonomy and how are our teachers feeling supported and things like that, that definitely promote a culture that people want to work there. So I think there's things that we can do in addition to finances to try to retain teachers and make Mifflinburg a culture where people want to work and teach there.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Mr. Keiser?
Yes, I think one of the important things is probably mentoring. I recently heard a learning supports teacher from Central Columbia that runs a mentoring program with seniors in his high school. And he's been doing that for multiple years. And 26 faculty members in Central Columbia were former students in this program. So there is something to be said about mentoring and encouraging kids to get into education. My wife was an educator for 35 years, and she never said she was in it for the money. She was in for it for the pleasure of teaching people. And I think that we have to show people that jobs are more than just money. And I was very fortunate to have two educators when I was going to school that influenced my life tremendously and has had a big impact on me. So I think we need to promote that. We need to get teachers to get more involved with their students and show them how wonderful education can be.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Before we move on to the final question, would anyone like an opportunity to give a rebuttal? Then here is our final question for the evening before we go to closing statements. The district superintendent leads the day-to-day operations, and the school board functions in the role of overall governance. How would you explain your role as school director to constituents who would want you to intervene in daily operations? We will go to Ms. Grant for the first report.
Great, yeah, just digesting the question. Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion in the public around what is the role of a school board member. I know before I joined a school board, you have these fancy ideas of like, oh, I can decide what books the first grade teacher is teaching, right? So I think a lot of it comes down to just communicating with the public and explaining, hey, my role is in this governance issue, and like we govern as a whole board of consensus. I'm not going in making decisions. But I think it is important to if people in the public are asking for things, say, hey, we do want to hear from you. Like, come to the meetings. You share with me what you'd like to see, and I can then communicate that up the chain, and we can create ideas so that you feel heard and you feel included as part of this community.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Mr. Muir?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I thought was I would say thank you. Thanks for showing some interest in the school board. Because after being at a few meetings, obviously attendance is pretty low unless there's a really hot topic item. So in terms of describing our role, I would just say it's exactly what you would expect in a governing body. It's 9 people that are passionate about our community, 9 people that are fully committing their time, energy, and effort outside of their other jobs to hopefully making a positive impact on the school board. And it's like steering a ship in the ocean. You're not going to make any massive turns overnight. We're going to be making small changes over time, but most importantly, with me and hopefully with the other board members, you've got an open platform, an open microphone. You can come reach out to me anytime, and I would love the feedback, because that's what we're going to need if we're going to make the changes that people want to hear and want to see.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Mr. Heath?
Well, having had that conversation a few times over the years, I can tell you that I don't know if there is an easy way to explain it. It does come down to a basic misunderstanding of kind of what school directors do and what board governance is about, in many cases. And part of it has to do with just the emotions that get involved when more than likely you're having that conversation with a parent who's experiencing an issue with their child, and there isn't any more emotionally charged event than that. So you go through the motions and you try to explain it, and you try to explain what board governance is versus what the daily operations of a district involve, and explain the fact that there really isn't even a mechanism for a school board director to be involved in day-to-day operations. It just doesn't exist. And hopefully, cooler heads prevail and people understand.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Ms. Faust?
Yeah, so I think I'd like to echo a lot of what's said. I think, it's a governing body, and we are a team, and we take the information that the administration gives us. And I really, would hope that there's a collaborative effort. And I think, as Ross said, great for, people wanting to be involved. I think, there is a lot of times with parents, a lack of involvement and wanting to know what's going on with the school district. So I really appreciate people wanting to be involved. And I think, I would hope if elected myself and all of the other board members would be, an open door that, if you have concerns, come talk to us. It's not that I individually will be able to necessarily do anything, but it's certainly I'll listen to your concerns and present that to my colleagues on the board if elected, and kind of go from there as a group and a group decision.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Mr. Keiser?
Yes, I think that it really starts with chain of command. When you talk to constituent, you have to ask them, have you talked to the teacher? Have you gotten any satisfaction? Have you talked to the principal? Have you gotten any satisfaction? And if not, then you need to contact the superintendent, because he's the one that is really calling the shots with regard to his faculty. And a lot of times people don't do that. A lot of times people just want to vent and complain and not really listen to what needs to be done. And I've encountered that numerous times, but I've also encountered board members who think that they're administrators, that they have the right to go in and tell different teachers how to run their programs or how to do certain things. And that's not why we're there. We're there to make sure that we hire the best possible administrators and teachers that we possibly can get. And people don't understand that we only have a certain amount of autonomy. But the most important thing is talk to the superintendent. He will listen. And a lot of times the superintendent will find out that he's never heard about some of these things.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. Mr. Gillot? Oh, you're muted.
Francis, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. Dennis hit the nail on the head, and it has happened to me that they don't realize what a school board member does. But I have already taken upon myself, somebody was having an issue, and I set up an appointment with the superintendent, went with these people, and we got, within a matter of a few minutes, we had the problem solved. The lack of communication. But a lot of people don't they think school board members, we could change the world or change the school, and we can't. And at the beginning of this program, we set policy, we make sure our kids, try to make sure our students are safe and support the administration. And that's really what when we vote on things, and that's it. But we try to help people too. If they haven't contacted the superintendent or the administrators, and my stop sign's up again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. Mr. Madaus? You're muted.
Sorry, I think I double tapped it. I've been fortunate or unfortunate, I suppose, to have several of these conversations previously, especially, and they're hard, especially when it's a family member, which I had many of in the district I served in before, including my grandmother, who was probably the toughest constituent I had at the time. And, I think just echo, right, explaining sort of how the board works, what my role in the school district is, helping people to figure out what the process is to get their concerns heard, from a school level all the way up to a board level, and helping them to navigate that, and also maybe doing some explaining about what the board policy is and how that policy maybe is affecting what's happening at the school level in the daily operation of the school. So, just being open, listening, and taking seriously the concerns that people have and helping them to navigate.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. Before we move on to closing statements, would anyone like to offer a rebuttal? Then we will move on to our closing statements, and we will begin with Ms. Faust.
Yeah, thank you guys all for hosting this event. I guess I'd just like to end saying, if I'm elected, I really want to support efforts to foster a safe school environment where truly every child feels welcome and safe coming to school. And that encourages them to be good citizens, to be lifelong learners, and to reach their maximum potential. I want to assure that our educators and staff are equipped with the support necessary to provide the best possible education to our kids, make sure they feel supported. I also really want to very much encourage collaboration and transparency between our whole community, administrators, educators, staff, students, parents, and get everyone on board and everyone's insight so that we can together really create the best possible school environment for everyone, where everyone feels involved, included, and safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. We'll now hear a closing statement from Mr. Keiser. You're muted.
You muted?
There you go.
I didn't think I was. No.
Nope. You're muted. There you go.
Okay. Just want to thank you for this event and the opportunity to speak. It's been a pleasure for the past 11 years, almost 12, that I've served on the board. I'd like to continue to do that because I do believe I am the voice of reason, and I'm willing to listen to both sides. It's not always easy, especially after going through COVID, but I want to make sure that we continue to provide the best education for our students in the Mifflinburg School District. And I think we've been doing a great job on that. And I'd like to continue to see that continue onward. And hopefully, I'll be able to continue to do that. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keiser. We'll now hear a closing statement from Mr. Gillot.
Well, thank you again for hosting this. And I thought it'd be easy on a computer. Now I realize with COVID and some of these students had to do everything online. I don't know how they did it. I'm glad all this COVID thing is over, and the students, if they want, come back to school and face to face. Like I said, my biggest thing is, communication. And if I'm reelected, one thing that I failed to mention was I'm also on the board over at Sun, and we have an asset over there that is fantastic. And I want to continue to promote that too. But you have to be on the board at Mifflinburg to do that. And I thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Gillot. We'll now hear the closing statement of Mr. Madaus.
Yes, thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. As I said in my opening, I think I just want to be part of continuing the great education that Lewisburg provides, giving back to the community in that sense, ensuring a great education for not just my kids, but all kids, ensuring that we're doing what we can for our staff there and making sure our teachers feel supported and doing the things that I talked about earlier with promoting Sun Tech and the career and technical education and making sure that kids have lots of different opportunities out of high school. And hopefully I can bring some of my previous knowledge to the board and help in that way. So I appreciate your vote and I hope everyone goes to vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Madaus. We'll now hear the closing statement of Ms. Grant.
Great. Yeah. Thank you to League of Women Voters for hosting the event. It's been a pleasure to meet with the other candidates, hear questions from the community, and see so much commitment to supporting our students and our schools. It's clear from our conversation tonight that we all value an excellent education for our students, and that as a school board, we want to elect members who have a passion for helping our schools, knowledge about education, capacity for listening to our community, and a desire to work together. I believe I bring all these factors, and if you vote to elect me, I'll be sure to employ my knowledge and my prior experiences to serve our students and our community. I'm optimistic that there are more good things to come for our school district, and I'd very much love to be a part of them. I hope I've earned everybody's vote for the primary on May 16th and again in November. Thanks everyone for engaging in this conversation to support our students, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their evening.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. We'll now hear the closing statement from Mr. Muir.
Just want to say thanks so much for the opportunity to present at least my side on these questions. And like I did say in my opening, if you do have any questions or want more clarification on something, by all means, please reach out to me. Obviously, as the dad of three daughters, really appreciate specifically the League of Women's Voters. I'm raising 3 strong, independent women right now with my beautiful wife, Kirsten. So thanks to Kirsten for holding down the fort. But most of all, just please know that a vote for me is a vote for somebody that's going to be an open ears, open heart, and really looking forward to the opportunity to serve our community, and really want to see just Lewisburg continue to grow and evolve and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. And now we'll hear a closing statement from Mr. Heath.
Thank you for hosting the event tonight, moderating the event. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and hear the questions and listen to the other candidates. And again, I've been serving for 8 years, and I would appreciate the opportunity to continue doing so.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. I want to thank all of our candidates here tonight for participating in this event. The League of Women Voters and the voters of Union County appreciate your willingness to present yourselves to us here at this event tonight. For our audience, I know that you all had other choices of things to do tonight, but you came to this event because you wanted to know more about the candidates that you will be voting for in the May election. And the League of Women Voters thanks you for attending. Now it is up to all of us, the voters of Union County, to go out and vote on Tuesday, May 16th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. If you've enjoyed this event and have an interest in joining our League of Women Voters, please contact us through our Facebook page, the League of Women Voters of the Lewisburg area, or on our website, lwvlewisburgarea.org. Good night and have a wonderful evening.